Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. Today is Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're joining us live or listening through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at WHY. AGAIN.org. If you go to that website, click on the red and white bullseye or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here. It will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of that book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work, which is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great advantage for the past 16-plus years to manage my emotions and turn any negative emotion experience into part of the infallible guidance system that we're all gifted with. So I've noticed a tremendous improvement in my relationships, physical, mental, and emotional health, and primarily, amazingly, I spend the tiniest fraction of time in experiencing negative emotions compared to what I did prior to learning these tools. You can also download the actual tool itself absolutely free. It's a PDF file. Click, print it off, use it as often as you'd like. You can download a whole host of audio files of shows like this one where people have been stepped through the actual worksheet process, and they can serve as a tutorial for you. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and download a completely free and private app that lets you have access to the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do that soon and often, and then give us a call. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And in our current format, we're here 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, just for that purpose, to be of service, to help people learn about and improve their use of these tools. We've also agreed to do the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year. And today is the 111th day of the year, and therefore we're on lesson 111. And 111 begins a review. And the intro to the review is 13 paragraphs long. So I'm not going to read that whole intro and use our show time for that. But I will point out that the core message in that intro is that the practice periods are recommended, and try to follow them as much as you can, and when you can't, let it go. But notice the difference between the situation I'm in right now, my life, my children, my work demands my attention, and therefore I can't do the practice period this hour, as opposed to I'm sitting here out on a park bench on a lovely day, and I just choose not to do the practice period. And the caution is that that will be detrimental. That will be our unwillingness, which will be an impediment to our learning. But the actual day-to-day life events, and when they interfere with the lessons, that's not impeding anything. So, Lesson 111 is a review of two previous lessons. Lesson 91, Miracles are seen in light. And the commentary is, I cannot see in darkness. Let the light of holiness and the light of truth light up my mind, and let me see the innocence within. Lesson 92 reads, Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one and the same thing. commentary says, I see strength, the gift a Creator gave to me, and my weakness is the dark that His gifts dispel by giving me His strength to take its place. And so on the hour, we recite to ourselves, miracles are seen in light. And on the half hour, we recite, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one and the same thing. So that's the lesson for today and the review, and it's recommended to go back and read the intro to the review because it talks a little bit more specifically about how we can block ourselves by being unwilling. Pam Grout's book, A Course in Miracles Experiment, highlights the title for this review section is Boom. And she quotes Rob Bell as saying, you're here and you're breathing and you get to take part in the ongoing creation of the world. Pam writes, this review, lessons 111 through 120, is all about the bennies. Radiant X wants to show off, to prove to you just how much there is to gain by working this course. In return for a very small ask of 5 minutes, twice a day, Radiant X will completely rewire your thoughts. The trick, and this is where she says, the asshat doth protest. The trick is to use the lessons each time your peace is threatened. Again, make it automatic. Use the lessons as a mantra. Rather than a different jukebox selection for each day of this review, I suggest repeating this one. Dance to the Music by Sly and the Family Stone, or pick your own favorite. So the first thing in the morning, devote 5 minutes to the lesson, and then right before sleeping, give it another 5. Apply it as needed. This is a piddly request for a ginormous outcome. Lesson 111, titled, Why I Subscribe to the Premium Channels. Someone on her Twitter feed shared, standing on the corner of awesome and bomb diggity. The morning review. What you need to know is miracles are natural. And then you also need to know miracles are effortless. So she writes, the skinny is, while much of the world subscribes to the default frequency, the one that outpictures the world we watch on the news, I commit to an amplified frequency. Instead of operating from the culturally agreed upon channel that radios in limitations, lack, and division, I tune into the premium channel that broadcasts a fuller, more beautiful, more accurate picture. This, I find, is reality. So, miracles are seen in light. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one and the same. So, our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and we have a full 50 minutes to take your comments or questions, have a discussion, do a worksheet, discuss what was going on in our support group last night, whatever would be of service to you is what we're interested in providing. I'm in a situation in my life these days where I'm blessedly busy. I have private practice, psychology practice. I have the 2 support groups. I have the internet show 5 days a week, and I have a regular series of questions from people about why do you do all of this? What benefit is to you? And the benefit that it is to me primarily, I think, is that I don't get caught constantly listening to talk radio or television or the doom and gloom series. And so when I'm doing the Mind Shifters Radio or the support group, or it puts me in a place where I feel like, you know what, for my next show or for my next support group, or I should have something that is uplifting, that is positive, that's creative. It's either a review of the tools or it's a different way to think about life. And so rather than flipping through social media or getting stuck watching television or listening to talk radio, I'm more often than not spending my time between sessions or when I'm doing domestic work at home listening to a book on tape or really good music of my choosing. And there, over the past, 10 years or so that we've been doing this internet show, that has kind of primed me to have that thought that I want to be doing things when I'm not on the show that might spark good content for the show, or when I'm not in the support group that might put me in a space where I'm predisposed to think in the way that these teachings would have me think. So I've fallen into the cycle of listening to or reading books, and several of them have been so powerful and useful that they've become a part of a series or a cycle that I do. And one of those is Alan Cohen's book, The Tao Made Easy. And that book and his intro to it are dear to my heart in a number of ways. And what he talks about is that his interest, I mean, if you think about it, I think he said there's thousands of titles. If you go to Amazon and type in the Tao Te Ching, there are thousands of books that come up that are still in print about the Tao. And he thought, well, why would I write another one? What could I possibly add to this? And I really like it when people don't take themselves so seriously and they ask, real powerful questions like that, because otherwise ego gets in the way. And so he decided that since his whole practice in life is practical, useful application of knowledge, that he would find a way to talk about the lessons, not just listing each one of them and then trying to interpret them, but do it from a way of kind of creating a narrative about life. And then he had one of the lessons from the Tao that it just didn't make sense to him. And so he got this like a voice in his head that said, well, ask Lao Tse, ask the master. And so he did this little visualization in his head, asking the master, what does this mean? And it felt like he was getting a download. So he decided that this is not a bad idea. And then he wove it into, as it expanded, the energies, the visions he got. He decided that each of his chapters would have one of those little vignettes in it, where he was going into a meditation and imagining what it would be like if he was actually the student of the wise old man back in ancient China, 2,500 years ago. And that has become, when I first listened to this book, and I listened to the audible of it, and he's reading it in his own voice, which I really enjoy most of the time. There are a few authors that are not as fluent with their reading, and it isn't as enjoyable, but most of the time I appreciate hearing the book read by the author, and he or she adds their personality to it, which enriches the experience for me. And that's the case here with Alan Cohen's The Tao Made Easy. And the whole point of his doing this with humility and with simplicity is that he's trying to help the intention, because the story is that the wise old man, Lao Tse, was so fed up with all the complexities of life and the kingdom that he decided to just go live a simple life. And as he was trying to exit the kingdom, the guard said, "Please don't leave without writing down your wisdom." And he wrote down these 87 couplets or whatever it is, these statements. And that became one of the, I think he said it is the most copied, printed, interpreted book other than the Bible in our history. So there is a tremendous amount of wisdom. There is, I think, beauty in the way he writes about it. It's rather poetic. And, of course, there's wisdom. And wisdom for a complicated world. Well, some might say that we're living in a rather complex world. Some might say that these days we are inundated with stimulation, with opinions, with conflict, with positions that we are urged to take, whether or not we actually have as my father would say, a dog in the fight. And in the introduction, he talks about how there's an ancient blessing, or some say it's a curse, that says, "May you live during interesting times." And of course, it's always an interesting time to be on the planet. And one of the things that makes this time so interesting is that we are constantly being asked for our attention by various forces, whether they are family that's in need, or whether it is merchants that want us to buy their product, or whether it's governments that want us to support their efforts, or whether it's religions that want us to support their group experience and their identity. So we have or whether it's the devices that we carry that have been programmed to get us to turn them on and stay focused on them and not put them down and check them obsessively. And so the idea that Alan Cohen decided to write this book that was written 2,500 years ago in response to a question, "Please tell us your wisdom," from a man who was trying to escape the chaos and brutality of the, quote, civilization that he lived in, makes it, for my mind, near a really relevant read. And Lao Tse had been appointed as what was a coveted position at that time, to be the keeper of the empirical archives. But he grew disillusioned with the divisive politics and the war and all the complexities in the society, and decided to leave the city and go to a more peaceful life. Well, if you're having any sense that your life is chaotic and that you might yearn for a little bit of a slower pace or some peace, this might be a really good place for you to turn. This book contains many, but not all of the stanzas of the Tao Te Ching. And he chose the stanzas that would just underscore the highlighted themes of the book. And he did these dramatized vignettes to help you imagine what it would be like to be walking with a true, centered, calm teacher in the world where there's such chaos. So, I should mention, I don't get any royalties if people buy this book after this. My interest in promoting this is to help people learn to turn inside themselves for their connection to the Tao. And the Tao, T-A-O, means the flow of life, means the eternal wisdom, means the one mind. It might mean the same as the Christ mind. And for somebody who understands that Christ was not a person but is an office, as Dr. Michael Rice talks about it, it is this state of mind that is open to input, insight, intuition, guidance from a more integrated perspective than our conscious, logical, rational mind can give us. So, one of the quotes in the book early on is, "While it appears that the universe is a foolish, even cruel play of random events, there is an intelligence operating behind the scenes, a fabric of life that integrates all creation. This power is invisible to the eye, and yet more real than anything the senses can touch. It is a mystery to the intellect, but knowable to the heart. It is life itself." Lao Tzu called it the Tao, the great way. So, I had a barely 30-year-old in my office yesterday, and we were trying to talk about his efforts to extract himself from the chaos and the cruelty and the never-ending struggle for attention and the demands on his time. And we were trying to talk about learning to go inside himself and just ask to be shown, learning to trust his inner guidance and intuition. And for me, it was a fascinating conversation because he comes from a tradition. He was raised without a religious tradition, but then when he had difficulty with addictions, he went into the 12-step program. And that tradition is talking about how we're powerless and we shouldn't be self-reliant and or self-controlled. And it was a fascinating conversation to help him redefine the judgment. So his definitions, as we unraveled them, about going inside and doing what he wants, is more like acting impulsively on whatever urge comes up in his mind. And we were talking about the difference between that and learning to get quiet and calm and ask to be shown from a space of just wanting my life to get better, a space of wanting to be able to appreciate the flow of life in, through, as, and around me. And if I ask from that genuine space of wanting to be shown and wanting to know, and then I don't kick in the intellectual mind that wants to figure it out, I simply do the next thing that feels okay to do, what happens is I learn. Guy Finley says, you can't do that. You can't ask to be shown and then take an action without the truth, without life showing you what's true and what's false. So even if I make a mistake, I learn, and life goes on. And even if I do the perfect thing to be a blessing to myself and others, then I learn again. And I'm in the moment, and I'm grateful for the choice I made and the consequences. When I make a choice and I'm not so happy with the consequences, I breathe and I ask to be shown again, and I have a lesson. And if I keep repeating the process, I train my mind differently than this Western mind training to put aside the figuring it out and learn to ask and then listen for the message from the still small voice, or from the intuition, or from Holy Spirit, or from God, or light, or love, or whatever you want to call it. And that's a training process, which is why we are here so often on this internet show, 5 days a week. It isn't a one-shot deal. I don't just say, okay, I've decided this is it. And then no more effort, everything flows, and I'm always tuned into the best thing for me and others. This is a reprogramming of what Guy Finley would call a mechanical level of mind that just keeps churning away. It has a lot of momentum for this negativity and for this second guessing and for this trying to figure it out. One of the things we did last night was in the support group was listen to Eli Jackson Bear, and he's the life partner for Gangaji. And they were talking about how Eli made the decision to devote his life to supporting his teacher, Papa G. And the thing he was saying is, I didn't do anything. And Gangaji corrected him and said, well, no, you did something. You said yes. You said yes to the opportunity to learn from somebody who had learned from a teacher, who had learned from a teacher. So there's this body of wisdom, like the Tao Te Ching. There's this history on the planet of people who have struggled with the mental emotional distortions and the desire to be good and the obsessions that are often triggered by the outside stimuli. And what we're asked to do in this work is tune into the part of our mind that can teach us from a higher level of integration. It's not tied into the conscious, logical, rational mind, which often can't remember what to take to the office without having to go back and make another trip home or find our car keys in a hurry, etc. So we're encouraging people with these tools, the reality management worksheet, the 3 early memories of conflict, as we were talking about yesterday, the mind goal management sheet. We're encouraging people to continually commit for themselves to learn about and remove the garbage or the blockages that they have preloaded from their family of origin or their culture that prevent them from being intimately, actively, constantly connected to the inner wisdom that can provide them what they're looking for, which is what? Peace, serenity, joy, productivity, gratitude, appreciation. What are you looking for? Each of us might have a slightly different way to answer that question. What do you want? What are you looking for? And every one of these great spiritual traditions is designed to help you figure out how to get rid of everything in your life except the things that will give you that peace, that connection, that yearning, that sits deep in the soul of most people, certainly every spiritual seeker. So that's what we're here to support people in doing, and Michael and Jeannie are making some very practical tools available toward that end. I had somebody in my office yesterday who was raging, absolutely raging. And when you listen to that person talking about why they're raging, if you listen from the purely conscious logical realm, you would soon be raging with them. However, as these great spiritual teachings tell us, it's not that you're not going to get angry, but quit fooling yourself into thinking that your anger is justified. Unless you are in a fight or flight response, trying to keep yourself from being eaten by a grizzly bear or a mountain lion, the rage response, the emotional energy that we experience as rage, is misplaced unless it is a short burst that keeps us physically alive and is done without thought. But beyond that, every time we're angry, I think I was mentioning this yesterday, that John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, he talks about how anger is always a secondary emotional experience, and its underlying causes are either fear or sadness. And of course, in Miracles, and Michael Rice might say, there's either fear or pain, and John Gray says it's fear or sadness. You're going to have something that you don't want to feel that's underlying your anger, and the anger is essentially a distraction from that, a drug to help you avoid feeling it. And the only way out is through. I need to allow myself to feel these emotions. I need to allow myself to accept these emotions and let myself feel them and study them so I can understand them. I can't deal with or dismantle something that I don't understand. I can't run away from something and deal with it or dismantle it. And herein lies the rub for most of us. Most of us do not like the idea that we need to allow ourselves to feel feelings before we can be educated about the best use of that energy signal and the information it contains. I routinely have people come to see me in therapy, and they want the magic bullet. They want the super duper pill and the magic wand, and they want me to give them the quick technique that they can use once or twice and then never have to use again. And whether they're half joking or dead serious, they're quite dismayed when I tell them I don't know of any such thing. And every time I've encountered somebody who said they had such a thing, it was a scam. The truth is, all of my upsets are energies that can teach me about myself and my life. And the only way for me to improve my life is for me to learn. I love Guy Finley. At one point, he has a talk where he says, imagine that you could take the position that every time something happens that you don't like in life, every time something happens that you don't like, that's either causing frustration or physical pain or the loss of a loved one or whatever, and you have a negative reaction to it, you could choose this interpretation. You could choose to approach it as though life, God, light, love, the Tao, whatever you want to call it, was saying to you, hey, Tim, would you like to know what is keeping you from knowing me and loving me more fully? Because right here in this moment, this is part of what's keeping you from knowing life and loving it more fully. Whatever it is I reject, whatever it is that I use as an excuse to generate the anger, the fear, the sadness, the hurt, the hostility, that's what's keeping me from knowing and loving the flow of life more deeply. And fortunately, we can offer tools to people to help them apply the tool persistently and consistently every time a negative emotion comes up, using their negative emotion as the guidance system to direct them where they should focus their attention and what should be put in this specific worksheet process. So you're not left out here alone. You're in the world with a teacher, with a guide that will never abandon you if you just ask to be taught. Susan, are you there?
I'm there. Hi, Dr. Tim. So I'm glad you're talking about John Gray. I listened to that podcast yesterday, and it was wonderful, and I see why you're saying that what he was talking about is so much like Michael's in your work. But he went into another area, and that was the area of, Michael touches on it when he talks about eating right as a way to just get yourself set up so that you can get maximal benefit from any emotional work you do. If you have physical support too, he probably would talk about exercise, and he talks about being among people a certain amount, getting out, not living in a dark room with the shades down and all that. But I'm really interested in what he talks about in the way of lithium, which goes right over in my mind to allopathic medicine and perhaps something that would allow us to maybe bypass some of the work we need to do if we're given a medication. Now, lithium, I guess, is a natural substance.
Yeah, he's not talking about the lithium as a medication. He's not talking about lithium carbonate. He's talking about lithium as lithium orotate, which is, something that will pass through the blood-brain barrier and allow you to take, 1/500th of what the doctor would give you, which then builds up in your system and has toxic effects. There's a very narrow window of therapeutic dosage, which is why when people take lithium the way it's prescribed by medical doctors, they're taking lithium carbonate, and they have to have frequent blood tests. They have to monitor it very carefully because the toxic effects at the high end are so pronounced. But with lithium orotate, you can go on Amazon right now and buy lithium orotate. There's because they know you can't really hurt yourself with it because they're given it in such low doses that it's not going to build up and be toxic. So in that way, it's more like a homeopathic remedy or a vitamin or a supplement than it is a medication.
Well, he talked about a lot of things that you should be taking: magnesium, calcium, zinc. And I'm thinking, wow, has he built himself a remedy, and is he selling it? I mean, I want some. It sounded like something that I would not be concocting in my kitchen, but if somebody did it for me, I'd be very interested in taking it. Do you happen to know if he went in that direction at all? I mean, I'm telling you, it's just what you were talking about. I want the magic bullet.
But do you remember what I just finished saying in the extended intro about how people come into my office and they want a pill or the magic wand or whatever? That's
I heard it, and I'm asking you this, even having heard it, because I'm asking it in the way of, let's do all we can. I'm not going to jettison the worksheets. I'm not going to stop listening to the radio show. But boy, if something's missing in my system, which is really exacerbating anything that might be in slippage, I would like to fix it, wouldn't you? I mean, isn't that an okay thing to think?
Yes, it is absolutely an okay thing to think. It's why they have, I have interviewed people like Dr. Donald Radin, who does a thorough assessment of people and their gut biome, because Dr. Radin would say, you can listen to what John Gray says, and you can listen to what Dr. Albert Mensa says, and they can give you these supplements, but if you take them orally and your body doesn't absorb them because your gut health is so out of whack, that it's like throwing the stuff away because your body can't make use of it. So the fact is, there isn't any one answer. There is no magic bullet. All of these different people are striving. They're trying to help people. They're using what's worked for them. But they've all got these fragmented pieces. So just in general, if you've got a specific pattern of upset and you listen to somebody like John Gray and he says, I used to have that and I put these 2 supplements in my daily routine and it helped me quite a bit, then you can try it. Or if you've got lots of money, because the insurance won't pay for it, you could go and have an assessment from somebody like Dr. Albert Mensa or Dr. Donald Radin. And Donald Radin would say, okay, if we do the assessment and we find out that you're low on this, this, and this, and we've also got an assessment that says, your internal gut biome is way out of whack, then instead of trying to give you an oral pill, we'll give you IV therapy. We'll put it directly into your bloodstream, and we'll help you get jump-started that way. The fact of the matter is, some people go to a doctor like that and have wonderful results. And not everybody who goes to a doctor like that has wonderful outcomes. So it's not a matter of, I just want John Gray to tell me what to do. I've had a number of people who've tried lithium orotate, and it hasn't worked for them. They haven't noticed anything. No, it's okay to keep taking it because it's not going to poison them or create any imbalances. But they've gotten all excited about, this is going to be great, and then they start taking it and they don't notice anything. But if that's all they're doing, and they've got 17 different levels of ultra-high stress going on, or they're living in a verbally, emotionally abusive relationship, or they're addicted to the social media like we were talking about, and they can't quit pouring the negativity into their mind, then it's not likely that 4 milligrams of lithium orotate is going to make much difference. So what we encourage people to do with this work is be proactive and personally responsible. You've probably heard me say this dozens of times. The goal is for me to get to the point where I'm actually 100% responsible for every emotion I experience. I step into asking myself, okay, how am I creating this upset? What is it that's in my daily living pattern that might be leaving me feeling exhausted or overwhelmed? And then using a variety of things, including looking at my diet and my nutritional supplements, but certainly not focused on that to the exclusion of the mental emotional work. Because time and again, the people who do the bulk of their work as mental and emotional, time and again they have far better lives than people who are obsessed with, I remember one time we had somebody call the show and they were just coming back from a trip to Machu Picchu with all these people who were supposed to be enlightened. And they hadn't even gotten, they weren't even out of the airport yet, coming back to the mainland from going to Machu Picchu with all of these really enlightened people. And they wanted to ask questions about, okay, let me ask you something. If a person's really enlightened, would they say this? Would they do this? So they're with people on this trip to the spiritual Mecca, and they're getting triggered left and right. And they're having all kinds of debates about who's really enlightened and what does it mean to be enlightened, and there's irritability and there's negative energies and people shielding themselves from the negative energies, etc. As you can tell, I was chuckling. I'm chuckling now. I was chuckling then.
Right. Yep. Well.
So it's for my money, the mental emotional work is a far more efficient way to make progress than the pursuit of watching every trace mineral I put in my system, or looking for the magic bullet.
Well, thank you. You've just talked me down to manageable levels again. So that's good. I got excited. Well, I have a friend who's a practitioner of various things. She's very eclectic, always taking courses and adding to her quiver, who offered me, she said, I swear to God, I can cure you of your tinnitus. It's called biomagnetism. I do 3 sessions, 150 each, and at the end of it, you'll be so much better. And I thought, that would be great. I signed on. I did it. She's a friend, too, so, but, I still have the tinnitus, and it's been, the 3 sessions are over, and I told her, what happened? Is it my resistance? And she said, well, I'm going to offer you several more sessions, no charge. And I thought, oh, no, I don't really want to do this. So maybe it is. I was looking for another magic bullet is all it is, Dr. Tim, and she was very convincing. So I got to watch that. Yeah. I did love that interview anyway for a lot of different reasons. It was wonderful. And I went on. Yeah.
For my money, whenever I have somebody on who's willing to talk about a family member that committed suicide, that they, that drove their passion or their own, bipolar experience, and when I have people on that are going to be that open and honest, I enjoy it immensely.
Well, I can see why. You're really in the real stuff. So that's wonderful. He mentioned a book he had just written, something about helping the boy or saving the boy, or it's a book about how to help young men cope with our culture, which is so down on particularly young white men. And I have 5 grandsons, all of whom are feeling that and talking to me about it. And I thought, oh, I need that book. So I went online and couldn't find it. Maybe I got the title wrong, but in all the lists of his books, I couldn't find it. Do you remember the title? I could always listen to the podcast again, too. But
I'm trying to look it up as we speak because I do not remember. He has the Beyond Mars and Venus.
That one looked sympathetic to men, too. It seemed to be addressed to issues that men have, and that might be a good one, too. I'd like to kind of screen it, but I can't imagine it wouldn't be great for 2 of my 5, particularly grandboys, who might be willing to look at that and find some solace in it. I get, they call and they rant about how they can do no right. It's like they are being blamed for being young white men. They feel boxed in.
So what do you tell them?
Well, I don't know. I've talked to them a lot about it. I couldn't tell you just how okay they are. But how hard it must be, I commiserate.
How about this is so, can you hear me? Can you hear the wheel spinning in my mind, screening this,
Yeah.
trying to come up with the perfect way to say this?
Okay, I'm listening.
How about from the wise grandparent perspective, helping them understand that while they are wonderful people and they have a lot going for them, that we can all always learn more about ourselves and about the ways in which we All right, you might be talking about the book Conscious Men by John Gray and Arjuna Ardaglia, Practical Guide to Develop Qualities of the New Masculinity. Is that the one?
Well, I don't recognize it, but it sounds very good. Say the title again, please.
It's Conscious Men,
Okay.
A Practical Guide to Develop 12 Qualities of the New Masculinity.
Wow, okay.
It presents a roadmap for the challenges men face today in living their fullest potential. So that's probably the book you're talking about, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Presents a roadmap for the challenges that men face today, living their fullest potential. It also has a To Women section offering women insight about how to recognize a good and trustworthy man.
Okay. I always thought I was pretty good at that, but who knows? You could always learn something. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dr. Tim.
So the other thing before we lose it completely, because that popped up, I just want to say that if my sons or grandsons come to me and they tell me about how it's so hard today because as young white men or established white men, they're being attacked at every angle, I always try to listen and say, yes, that's a very difficult situation. I can understand how that's a challenge for you to know how to respond. And I try to let them know that there's been a lot in our culture that's been amiss, that's been abusive, that's been hidden from our view. And every time I hear a criticism and I am in a good space, I'm also looking for what it might teach me. So I want my sons, I want my friends to have their ears open to how life can improve if they apply their wisdom and their intellect toward growth rather than toward clinging to stability of what was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. In the case of one of them, I'm sure he's not clinging to what was. He just doesn't feel as if he has his pontoons out. He's at a loss. He's just watching. It's like he's treading water and listening and watching and trying to be open, and it's just challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of us have been raised to think it's perfectly okay that men make more than women.
Yep. That's true. You know, and women are mad.
That's just one of the many distorted perceptions that a lot of people take for granted and don't even understand it's there. They're blocked in a bias in that way.
Mhm.
So when I have anybody, one of my sons and they're both, just about as white as you can get, right? The grandparents on both sides are Irish and German. As far as we know, that's in their bloodline, and they look, very Caucasian and very white. And if they come to me, I try to highlight for them the fact that they have privileges they aren't even aware of. Right. They're blind to what they've been taught and how to think about themselves and others. They're as blind as, an earthworm. It's amazing. So while I empathize with them that it is difficult to, seem like to feel as though they're being attacked and no matter what they say and do is wrong and they can't get it right, I also want them to understand that not everybody who's suggesting they look at themselves or that part of what they're doing might be adding to a problem, not everybody who's suggesting that is just out to knock them down. Right? There are a lot of people who are saying, look, we're living in a very lopsided, unhealthy culture, and if we stay blind to it, we can't fix it in any way.
Yep.
So we have just a couple minutes. Let me turn on Ellen. She put her hand up here. I just noticed. Ellen?
Hi, Dr. Tim. Hi, Susan. I just wanted to chime in with Susan, if you get that book, share with me the section that's for women. I think I could use that.
Okay. Deal. All right.
I don't think I'm going to buy a book that's primarily for men, but when Dr. Tim mentioned the section that's for women, that sounded really appealing to me.
Right. Well, I'm going to look into it because I want to have some more things to say and how to work with the grandsons, and this might be helpful. So I can rip out the section on women for you. No, I'll read it and give it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dr.
Well, again,
I have a
title. Go ahead.
I have a little Tao Te Ching by Stephen Mitchell. That's Byron Katie's husband or partner. A little pocket I Ching that I love. And so I'm glad you mentioned yours. I'm eager to see that too. The one you were quoting from or telling about.
Yeah, that's by Alan Cohn, and it's different than any one I've ever seen before because he doesn't just list the statements in the Tao Te Ching and then try to interpret them differently. He actually tries to talk about how the lessons that he does cover from the Tao are applicable in our current lives, actual practical application of these wisdoms.
Right. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you both for your comments and questions. We are down to our last minute or two, and I will mute you so we can make the transition and remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. I came in late. What book is it that you're talking about?
The one we were talking yesterday about the interview I did with John Gray, and his most famous work was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. But in 2015, he wrote another book with Arjuna Ardagh, Ardagh, and that book is titled Conscious Men, a practical guide to develop 12 qualities of the new masculinity.
Awesome.
He says it presents a roadmap for the challenges men face today in living their fullest potential.
Okay.
All right. Good. And we did not get to, I don't know how long you've been on the call, but someone just put their hand up, area code 314. We haven't given them a chance yet.
Very good. Okay.
All right. Have a great show. Bless
Thank you.